What's up, everybody, and welcome to PPR Podcast number 128, the Week 8 recap and Week 9 preview show, brought to you by the San Diego Strike Force. As always, I'm Chase Izidoro, and today we are joined by the man from the north, Nick James. Nick, 8 weeks down already. We're going into Week 9. It's just flying by.
It's just a blur.
Honestly.
An absolute blur. I mean, we always talk about it all the time. Week 1, and then next thing you know, it's Week 5.
And it feels like the lead up coming into August when we're doing all the 7-on-7 and stuff. And it's like, oh man, I can't believe PPR is here. And now we're talking about getting ready for the gala coming up here in a little bit.
I know, right?
But let's
all the previews that we do, and then all of a sudden it's all just a blur.
Yeah, honestly. But let's get right into the action. And honestly, we have to start off where you were on Friday night, which was the biggest showing of the night, which was Torrey Pines yet again coming out with the upset. 10-6 over Mission Hills. Torrey Pines now moving to 5-2 on the season. Mission Hills dropping to 3-3. What was your biggest takeaway from that game?
Coach Ashby just has he just has his boys just ready to roll. I mean, I'm sitting there, I'm watching the game. It's back and forth. And Mission Hills had all the momentum until right before halftime. Coach Hauser decided to punt. I think it was about 40 seconds left. They went back to punt, and then the punt got blocked, scoop and score, and then that flipped the script of the game just like that. So instead of being up at halftime and having some momentum going into the third quarter, all of a sudden you're chasing and then just trying to figure it out. It was just kind of let the air out of the balloon for Mission Hills, and especially on the road, coming down from San Marcos, going into Torrey and playing at their venue, just being on the road in general in high school. It's still, it's still tough. You got to travel and still get it done. So, I mean, they had the momentum, and just on a dime, it just flipped like that. And in the second half, just neither team could get it going, and it was a really good ball game. Then the fog rolled in. You just had that feel of a great high school game. Fog rolled in. People trying to punt, play the field position game because you can't see in the third quarter. Third quarter, you couldn't even see what was going on. Fourth quarter, the fog cleared. Then they were able to open it up again a little bit and kind of move the ball at that point. But it was just kind of a stalemate, back and forth, couple punts, couple turnovers at that point.
And we've seen him make the same play over and over again, whether it be on the defensive side and now twice on special teams. Cade Wilkin, we saw it earlier where he won play of the week for blocking a punt and then scooping himself. But to do that again in this game, and flip the script like you said, what have you seen from the Torrey Pines defense? Because Torrey now has only given up 31 points in their last 5 games. That has helped them to get it onto 5-2 record. And not only just Cade Wilkin, but Dawson Washington, one of the leaders of the team, getting an interception in the red zone to kind of seal the victory.
Yeah, he actually picked it off in the end zone, I believe, right there to seal it. Yeah, because I remember Troy Hune was back to pass, and he was trying to hit the young man coming through in the second window, and as he threw it, he was kind of sitting on it, he was kind of baiting him, and then he jumped it, and then when Washington was returning it, I'm like, if he returns this, it's probably going to be game, but they caught him, and then they kind of D'd up and bowed their necks. And Mission Hills actually got the ball back, but at that time it was just kind of too late to kind of go back down and punch. But their defense is fantastic. They have a lot of kids that have a quick twitch. They're not super big, but they're fast and they're scrappy, and they swarm to the ball carrier. And then I know the young man from Mission Hills, Hart, he had over 100 yards that night, but that's pretty much where their defense kind of, okay, we're gonna let him get his, but if we can kind of offset the passing game with Troy Hune and Jaden Williams not doing too much through the air, because as long as you got to take away something, either the run or the pass, and they let Hart, he did his thing, he had over 100, like I said, but they kind of condensed and kind of stopped them in the passing game, so they were able to take away one of the two things that they like to do and stay pretty balanced. And Torrey just has these kids that, and we're sleeping on them. We're sleeping on them. They were 2-0. We didn't see them coming. Everyone's thinking, okay, Torrey. And then when they knocked out Crete Makaele at San Marcos, and they ended up winning that game, and they were like, okay, their defense is legit. These kids, they fly around, and Coach Ashby has them just flying around like they're all over the place. It looks like they got 13, 14 kids out there. And that was the first time me seeing them in person, because, just seeing them in person, I'm all over the place on a Friday night, but that was the first time in 8 weeks that I've had a chance to watch them get after it. And they're really good on both sides of the ball. They're sound. They can run it when they need to run it. They have some gadget plays they use. They can throw it when they need to throw it. And they're pretty balanced. They don't try to do too much. They're not going to go out there like Carlsbad and sling it around the lot like what Julian Sand does. They kind of stay in their lane, and they do what works best for their skill sets for their kids.
I mean, it's been pretty incredible because we all slept on Torrey Pines. I mean, because there was so much hype around all the other teams, and especially once LCC started getting going early on, everyone was focused on them, focused on Mission Hills, obviously focused on Carlsbad, El Camino, and then Torrey Pines has crept in there and beaten 2 solid teams.
Just under the radar and stacking W's.
And then to do that
stacking W's
against teams that are known for being physical, El Camino and Mission Hills, and you come out there and you put on the defensive performance to win those games has been honestly phenomenal.
They're out there balling out. Coach Ashby has those young men out there doing work.
And now we get to another game from the North County, which was the game of the week. El Camino upsetting LCC, but really they were coming into it where you could, they were so close.
That's a coin flip game.
We
could
get into it
flip.
with most of the Avocado teams. They're so close.
Yeah.
But El Camino now 5-2. After beating LCC, who's now 5-2, 24-17, coming down to a goal line stand. Carson Howard making 2 huge touchdown passes, but Ryan Speltz getting a big touchdown catch. But the ultimate play was his tackle at the goal line to stop the touchdown with the guy in midair, and then they bowed their necks at the goal line to win the game. I mean, that's just phenomenal from a defensive side of the ball. But for El Camino, they couldn't drop 2 in a row in Avocado. With where they're trying to get to this year.
Because just like you said, Torrey Pines beat El Camino, and no one saw that one coming.
No.
And I remember, I think that score was 23-12, and I think they had a 23-0 lead. El Camino scored a couple touchdowns late to try to make it a little bit interesting, but Torrey Pines pretty much dominated that game, and like, whoa, we didn't see that one coming, because I've seen El Camino play a couple times. They played against Tafuna, and I watched them play against Oceanside, and I'm like, El Camino's pretty good. And then I've seen LCC play as well, and I was like, yeah, that's going to be a very good game going into last week, and it turned out to be a fantastic game, 24-17. It was a great game. Like you said, all those teams in the Avocado are right there. It's Carlsbad and everyone else. And even Poway moving over leagues. Kyle Williams, I believe, is now 3-4 in the Avocado. But he lost 30-some kids last year, and he's doing a fantastic job with coming into that new league. And they lost Connor Rath and all those kids they had last year when they went undefeated and then lost and went to the Open division last year.
And the fact that we're looking at them as, no disrespect to them, but probably the lowest team in the Avocado with how high everyone else has been rated. You've now gotten the chance to see everybody in the Avocado.
Right.
Let's take Carlsbad out of the equation because everyone's going to know that they are the top dogs there, at least for right now.
Yeah.
When you see all these other teams, El Camino, LCC, Mission Hills, and Torrey, obviously, some of these teams have wins over the other now, but when you watch them with the eye test, who's standing out to you as like, okay, maybe they're getting a little bit of separation? Because from what I've seen, they're very close all around between those 4 teams.
And I agree with you. I think they're all right there, and I think Carlsbad is just a little bit the cream of the crop in the Avocado. I think everyone is. Bert Grossman said it the other night. I think everyone's playing for second in the Avocado. Not to knock the other teams in any way, shape, or form. I just think that Carlsbad, from top to bottom in all facets, offense, defense, special teams, they're probably the cream of the crop in that league. And then everyone else is right there, though. Like you said, the separation for like second all the way through the rest of the way is right there. LCC, El Camino, Torrey, all those guys are right there. Poway, they're all really, really stout. And now we're in league play now. Everyone's just beating each other up.
Yeah.
So everyone's going to catch an L. Someone's going to catch an L. Like this week, Torrey, Mission Hills last week, El Camino, LCC. And then this week, I'm at Mission Hills, and they're taking on LCC. So someone's going to catch an L there. And just everyone's just losing against each other. And then it's weird it's not weird. It's a funny dynamic that all these teams are going to be in the playoffs. And then to see how it all plays out, I guess it's pretty funny because their strength of schedule, the coaches schedule up,
and they're all D1,
and they're all D1.
So we're seeing this, and then we're going to see it come again.
Because we know Carlsbad's going to be obviously go to the Open, and then Mission Hills, Torrey, El Camino, LCC, everybody else there is probably trying to get to one of those top 4 spots. Lincoln and Carlsbad are probably taking up 2 spots already. Then Helix is probably going to get a spot, Granite, and then there's like probably 7 or 8 teams trying to get to the 4th spot. Not necessarily the 4 seed, but in the top 4.
Yeah.
And then they're going to jockey for position as we have the last few games going on or whatever.
What I've seen from the scoreboard every Friday night is there's some games that either go to overtime and we're getting thrillers, and there's some games that have been blowouts, and we've seen a lot of those recently. So it's really refreshing to see the Avocado League where you could chalk them up as the games of the week. We can run game of the week through just the Avocado alone because they are so close in competition and they come down to the wire, and it's so hard to like, okay, LCC, I think they have probably the better of the offenses out of everybody. They're more well-rounded on offense. But then when you go against a team like El Camino that has the size, how does that impact? And we saw it, they couldn't get a 1 yard on the goal line stand.
Right.
You know, same thing goes for Torrey Pines with Mission Hills.
Yeah.
We know Mission Hills has a great defense. The offense has been great, but like it could be a lot better. And then you run into a great Torrey Pines defense, it comes down to a 10-6 ball game. You know, it's so refreshing to see that when you look around the rest of the leagues, especially like if you're looking at the Western League where Lincoln is looking like a further step away from everyone at this point, especially what they've done to Madison and Cathedral. But to see the Avocado week in and week out, I mean, it's what we're all tuning in to see, and I cannot wait to check the scores. It's an awesome league right now.
Yeah, and that's gonna be a great game this weekend with
Carlsbad
2-0 at 2-0 Torrey Pines.
Yeah,
I mean that's gonna be a bang up game at Torrey's house on Friday. That's gonna be a really
Carlsbad,
good game.
Torrey, LCC, Mission Hills. We'll get into that in a little bit, but it's like because they're so well matched up with each other. I mean, you rotate them every other week. I mean, and then you look at LCC schedule down the rest of the stretch. I mean, it's everyone that's in our top 9. I mean, it's just good football all around. Good for our channel as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But now we'll get into our top 9. Might as well. For me, I still have Lincoln at number 1 at 8-0. Dominant performance over Cathedral. Carlsbad 7-0. No Julian, no problem. 35 win over Poway. I still have Granite Hills at 3rd. I have Helix at 4th. Helix, you know, I have to apologize because I didn't say that they would lose to Grossmont, but I did say if there was ever a time Grossmont can play like to that level because of their offense, I said it was that, and it just wasn't. And I think that just shows that there really isn't a parity between a lot of these teams. There's barely even a parity between the teams in the top 4 because you could say Lincoln and Carlsbad are separating themselves from everybody else. I have Del Norte at number 5 because it's a mix now from 5 to 9 because now I have to go, okay, well, they beat them, but they beat them, and they beat them. So that's basically where I'm at. So because of that, Del Norte beat Torrey Pines. And so they are at 5 while Torrey Pines is at 6. Torrey Pines probably has the better wins, having won against Mission Hills and now having won against El Camino. But I have to give it to Del Norte because I can't put them behind Torrey when they beat Torrey. Then I have El Camino at 7, a huge win over LCC. I have LCC at 8. I have Mission Hills dropping out of my top 9. It's hard for me at this 9 spot because I don't know what to do with Cathedral. I really don't.
It's tough, but like you said, we were talking off camera.
It's hard to put.
But they schedule just ridiculous squads across California.
Like the performances they put in. You know, obviously the one against Lincoln, that was a pretty big beatdown, not going to lie. But I still like the performance they put in against Helix, so that's probably where I'm putting them. I was considering St. Augustine, because St. Augustine put in a great performance against Granite Hills. So that 9 spot to me is where it gets kind of wishy-washy.
Okay, I'm gonna play devil's advocate right here. Okay, I love your top 9. I would just flip. I think this 1 and 1A, 2 and 2A, however you want to do it. I think Helix above Granite. So Lincoln, Carlsbad, 1-2, got you. You have Granite in the 3-hole, Helix in the 4-hole. I would flip those 2 just because I just think Helix is very, very salty. Granite Hills is very, very salty too. But I just think Helix, I would put them just a smidget above. So I would put Helix in the 3-hole, Granite in the 4-hole, and then the 5, 6, 7, 8, Del Norte, Torrey, El Camino, LCC. And then in the 9-hole, I would probably put San Marcos there because they're 5-2 and they've lost to Mission Hills and Torrey Pines, but they lost without Crete Makaele. So they're still 5-2 without their sophomore sensation slinging the ball around the lot. And I think you talked to him at the Discovery Bowl, and he said he was going to try to come back week 10 or week 11.
He said he's pushing to get him back
right.
for the playoffs.
So,
which I agree with you. I think they could be a team. And if you look at it, he did get hurt in the Torrey Pines game.
Yeah, he did get hurt in that game.
You know, maybe they go on to win that game. We can't play the maybe and ifs game, obviously. Right. But then you look at the Discovery Bowl. I believe that game was 7-0 at halftime. Yeah. And then San Marcos went down, and their offense just couldn't get it going, trying to figure out what to do without Crete. And they were still in it. Mission Hills pulled away late.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm right there with you. I agree that San Marcos, and I think rewarding them for getting these wins still without Crete.
Without him.
I agree. I think they are going to be a top team that's probably being forgotten about right now.
Right, and props to Cathedral because Coach Doyle always schedules up. Yeah. I mean, they schedule dogs.
Yeah.
And so to be 2-6, I mean, they could easily be 3-5. That doesn't look great on paper, but they're playing some squads that you see on ESPN on Friday nights. They're playing some. I mean, they're playing some straight dogs.
What I wanted to see from them, I wanted to see somewhat similar to what we saw last year because they had a tough schedule again, but they were right in it with that great Lincoln team last year.
Yeah.
So I wanted to see that, and we didn't see that.
Yeah.
So I was considering dropping them out of my top 9, but I think we're going to see more from them with the rest of league play.
But you couldn't do that because you're an alumni.
No, there's no bias here. There's no bias here. They already made me run my laps and made me do everything, flip the tire. They can't make me do it now. All right. So I'm in the clear.
You're in the clear. You're straight now. Yeah,
we're good. But no, I think we're going to find out a lot more about them when they face Madison, when they face St. Augustine's. Right. That's where we're going to really get a better look at them.
Yeah, but our top 9, I agree with you. I would just flip. Flip the Helix and Granite, and then I would probably have Cathedral out, just 2-6. And I know they schedule up, but I would put San Marcos there at 5-2 over a 2-6 squad.
So what we've been asking everyone, I've talked with Bo, I've talked with Allison, and even Brandon off camera. That 1-4 group though is starting to separate. They might not be the 1-4 because the strength of schedule. Granite, Helix looks like maybe one of them will only make it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But do you think those 4 are the best 4, and then it's a little bit of a gap between the rest?
I agree. Like if we put a line right under those 4, then because you have Del Norte in the 5 hole, and then Torrey, I think there is a little bit of separation there just because how dominant all the top 4 that we're putting in our top 4 in our opinions on the board, how strong they are on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Like for the 5 through 9, they have to play. I mean, they have to play lights out on both sides to kind of get W's. The top 4, they can get away with, like, if they don't have a great performance from Julian, Carlsbad's defense is pretty stout. Like Carlsbad, with Carlsbad, then with Lincoln, if Achilles Smith Jr. isn't slinging it around the lot, then Jerome Roberts is going to get a pick 6. He's going to right. That's what I'm saying. Like they could get away with like not playing their best game and probably still beat someone by 15, 20 points in the top 4. The other teams, they have to play more sound football, I think, to get those W's, especially most of those squads that we're talking about are in the Avocado. Besides Carlsbad, they're in the Avocado. There's a separation in the Avocado.
And there's so much parity.
A little bit, yeah.
And there's so much parity.
There's so much parity, but Carlsbad seems like they're above, and then the other guys are really good, and then they're just beating each other up. Because you look at the margin of victory, Carlsbad, they're running cats off the field. I mean, they're blowing cats out. And the other games,
no Julian this last week, they still beat Poway by 35.
But that's what I'm saying. So you take that in consideration, like what Carlsbad is doing, how they're kind of putting hands on teams, and then the other teams in the Avocado are just beating each other up, going to the wire at the very end. So I think the top 4 is pretty stout. Then the other ones, they have to play pretty sound football, I would think, across the board to win those games. Because Del Norte couldn't go out there, I don't think, with Ty Olson and Jack Schneider, and like if they would have to probably put up 35 or 40 on a night if their defense isn't playing well.
Yeah.
Like I think they can't offset like not doing one thing without the other. As far as like the top 4 teams, if they're not playing very good on one side of the ball, they can get away with it.
Absolutely.
And I think the other teams, it's a little bit of different. They have to be pretty sound on both sides of the ball, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So let's get right into week 9 now, which we got some great Avocado League matchups coming here. Let's start with the game of the week. 7-0 Carlsbad at 5-2 Torrey Pines. Can Torrey Pines pull off 3 weeks in a row of an upset? And this would be the biggest upset of the year if they were able to pull it off. From what you've seen from them, can they hang in a game against Carlsbad?
I think if they play keep away, but that's been the formula all year we're 8 games in now. But the thing is, Carlsbad still, they're just blowing teams out. So it's one of those things, if Torrey Pines can play keep away and keep the ball away from Julian and just kind of run the clock and stay true to form, because Torrey Pines isn't built if they get down like 14-0, maybe 21-0. They're not built to sling it around the lot.
Yeah.
So if they get down, then that's when I fear like it might be curtains for them. But I mean, if it's 7-3 or 7-up at half, I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to be a ball game because Carlsbad hasn't been in a close one yet. Torrey knows how to play in those because they've had close games. Like they're just going back and forth. Last week, 10-6, 23-12, not that close, but I mean, it kind of got tight at the end against El Camino. But those games, I just think the adversity, Torrey is ready for it. Not saying Carlsbad isn't because they're blowing cats out, but I'm just saying, I think if it's a close game and it's late, and Torrey's right there. I think they could probably steal that one, but as of right now, I just think Carlsbad is really, really good. Torrey is really good across the board, though, and if they can play deep, if they can play keep away and keep the ball away from Julian and from Mason just running wild, because I mean they can run it and they can throw it, and they're Carlsbad is so balanced,
and they're efficient.
And they're very efficient.
It doesn't matter if it's Mason or if it's McCormick. It doesn't matter if it's any of their
guys. That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
and
they got dogs. That's what I'm saying. But the thing is, if Torrey can't take away one or the other, it's going to be tough because Carlsbad can be they're balanced, and they're probably the most balanced team in the county. Not to knock anything on Lincoln, but Lincoln's going to throw it around a lot. They're not really committing to the run a whole lot. I mean, last year, they had Rod, young man's a freshman at UGA, getting playing time and getting burned in the SEC. So that makes sense. You're going to give him the ball and whatnot. But Lincoln wants to sling it around a lot. Of course, they got a 4-star, 5-star QB. Throwing it around the yard, so I get it. Same thing with Julian. He's going to Alabama. He throws it around a lot too. But I think Carlsbad, when put into that situation, they'll run it a little bit more. So I think if Torrey can take away the run or the pass, or if they can stop Julian a little bit and maybe shut down something that they want to do, I think if they play keep away, I think Torrey can keep that one close if they play keep away from Julian.
What we've seen from Torrey is that they've been able to make moments and make those moments matter, whether it be Cade Wilkin coming up with a huge play or Washington getting an interception. That has to happen in order for this to be a close one, in my opinion. If they just have consistent drives for Carlsbad and they don't make those huge stops or those great interceptions or a block punt, I think Carlsbad can run away with this one.
Yeah.
And I think it'll just be another reminder of there is a difference from the top of the league compared to the rest of the guys. Let's get to the game you will be covering, the North County game of the week. 5-2 LCC at 4-3 Mission Hills. LCC only really losing one game in the Avocado, but now it seems like kind of desperation is on. If someone is going to sneak one from Carlsbad, this league gets a lot more interesting. But you have to be in that position to win this league by winning all these games. Mission Hills now dropping 2. They need to prove themselves against these Avocado League teams. Huge matchup between these two teams.
To say this one's a must-win for Mission Hills and Coach Hauser.
It seems like it, right?
Because you can't. I was talking to him last week. You don't want to go 0-2 in league. Now they're on the verge of going to 0-3. 1-2 is not great. 0-3 is devastating.
Especially when you're probably going to see a lot of these guys come playoff time again. You need to have that confidence of we're capable of beting some of these guys.
But one of those L's is already against Carlsbad, though, so they did open up and they lost that one already, assuming, if Carlsbad runs the table, that we're assuming they probably will run the table. But, their first, and that was just a tough L the other night. So, they could easily be 1-1. And, Coach Sovaco is 1-1 in league. Mission Hills is 0-2. I think it's more of a desperate situation for Coach Hauser and his boys.
I think so.
Yeah, I think they need to get to 1-2 as opposed to being obviously 0-3. And then Coach Sovaco, he wants to be over 500 in Avocado League action.
It's going to be an interesting game. To think LCC was this close from being still undefeated in the Avocado League. I think that hurts them, and they'll take that pain from the El Camino game. What they do with that, we'll see. Because, anytime you go to Mission Hills always plays well at home. That's one thing I've noticed.
Yeah.
They usually are a very good team at home. It'll be a tough one to try to break through. For me, I'm still going to favor LCC in this one. I've liked what I've seen from their offense more than Mission Hills' offense. I still think Mission Hills has a lot of weapons, but LCC, it just seems like a different player comes up, whether it be Garcia or Mays and Quinn Roth throwing the ball. Trevor Ladd, it feels like he doesn't even get that many touches, but he is probably the best player on that team, and he's phenomenal. It's just they have so many weapons. I think it's very tough. But if there was a team that matches up well with that, it is this Mission Hills defense. They're loaded on the defensive side of the ball. Mission Hills' offense needs to come to the party, though.
Because
LCC is going to put up points.
Kloss is a dog.
He is.
Kloss is a dog. And then Jaden Williams, I believe, goes both ways. And they got some. Giovanni Hart is a dog. Like, he had over 100 the other night and a touchdown. Coach Hauser's going to try to scheme up and take away something that Coach Sovaco doesn't want to do, whether that be take away the running game, take away Mays. Herman is a sophomore. Their quarterback, Roth's a sophomore. So Coach Sovaco is licking his chops right now because he's got some young stunners that are coming through there. And that's going to be a really good game.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be a really good game.
And we're going to get to the Jersey Mike City game of the week, 5-2 Scripps Ranch at 0-7 UC. this UC team has been phenomenal these last couple of years. To be 0-7 at this point is shocking, but they also moved into the Western League. It's a much tougher league, having to go against Lincolns and Madisons, and they still haven't even played most of those teams yet. But this seems like a little bit of desperation for them. If it's now or never for UC, and if they're getting a Scripps Ranch team, which, to be fair to Scripps Ranch, is probably the easier of the teams they're going to have to face, but Scripps Ranch has been no pushovers. They're probably the most underrated team in this county, and that comes down to Cash Campbell. What he's been able to do at the quarterback position, nobody's been able to talk about him enough, and I think we need to start talking about Cash Campbell.
Because life after Jax Leatherwood has begun for Coach the Fighting Marlon Gardneras.
I don't think we really knew where we were going to go with Scripps, you know, because we get so caught up on, all right, star player here, star player there, star player there, that Scripps has just flown under the radar, and they've put up a lot of great wins this year, and they had a close one against a Mira Mesa team, which we just saw Mira Mesa, go down to the wire basically against Madison. I think the Scripps Ranch team is on a mission, and I think they're one of the better teams in D2, which once you start looking at the standings in D2, there's a lot of great teams. But I think UC, this is the, man, we got to win this one type of game. And they have the potential to do that. They have the players to do that. We'll see what happens. I love that we're giving them both the spotlight because I think both these teams deserve it. But, man, if I had to favor one, I'd still probably moving with Scripps Ranch.
Yeah, the Falcons. Marlon seems like he's got them moving in the right direction. Then Coach Lee Cole, he was the coach at Del Norte. He's the OC for them now. So he moves over and he's with Marlon now, and Marlon's the head coach. And it seems like their kids are clicking. Like you said, UC, when they had Sam Cooper and those cats and all those guys, but they were playing in a different league, and now
they lost a lot of players.
They lost a lot of players. They lost a lot of players, just like Poway, and a lot of our schools have lost a lot of kids, and then some rebuild, some reload, and right now it looks like UC's probably on rebuild mode. I don't want to knock them, but when you're 0-7. I'm just keeping it 100.
It's tough not to look at it that way.
Yeah, it's tough. They could keep that one tight, and and it's at their house, so maybe they jump up and get them. Maybe it's homecoming this week for them. Maybe they rise up, and the Centurions still won against Marlon and the Fighting Gardneras for the Falcons. But that should be a pretty good game too, though. I don't think that one's going to be a blowout. I don't think the record indicates
they've got good offense on both sides.
And I don't think
a lot of points in that game.
And I don't think the 0-7 indicates how good that team could possibly, they could run off a few games and get into the win column, because 0-7, that team's better than 0-7. Like that team is actually pretty good.
Yeah, I agree.
They've just had a little bit of bad luck or whatever. So I wouldn't be surprised if they beat Scripps Ranch at home, but it could go either way. But I wouldn't be shocked if the Centurions get Marlon in them this weekend.
And now we have the El Cajon Ford East County game of the week, 7-0 Granite Hills at 4-3 Steel Canyon. We want to talk about Scripps Ranch being one of the underrated teams. We said it a couple times now. Steel Canyon is on the rise.
Coach Longerbone.
Yeah, it has
scrappy cats.
It comes down. Joshua Herber has been great at quarterback, but it comes down to Jonathan Sablon. Over 1,000 yards rushing and 12 touchdowns through 7 games this year. He is everything, and I love a good run game. What it can do for clock management. What it can do when you go against a great team. We saw Granite Hills. To be fair, when they were going against St. Augustine, it was a different kind of run game because Brady Palmer got hurt, so they had to adjust to the Wildcat. They couldn't really. So maybe it doesn't apply the same way, but if Granite can't handle the run against a very good run team in Steel Canyon can be in this game. However, I have yet to see anyone go toe-to-toe in the trenches with Granite Hills and come out on top. Obviously, they're 7-0. It's because they're great on both sides of the ball in the trenches, and that's just been the recipe for how they work. And I just love what I see from Zach Benitez, more and more the freshman getting better and better as the year goes along. I think Granite Hills, like we said with Helix, their strength of schedule means that it's going to come down to the game where they play each other. So they both have to be undefeated by the time they get there. Otherwise, it's not going to matter. So, it's playoff. It's been playoff time since August.
So you think the winner of that gets to the 4 spot?
3 or 4, one of the two. But the loser that might get caught where they don't get the 4.
And then they drop to D1.
Yeah.
But just think how Chase, D1 is going to be absolutely salty.
Yeah,
D1 is going to be absolutely loaded, because all those teams in the Avocado are not going to be in the open.
Yeah.
So D1 is going to be absolutely
it's stacked.
It's going to be loaded.
Yeah, but I think Granite Hills, it's been playoff time since they played the scrimmage game against Lincoln. They even treated that as trying to show that they are one of the best teams in the county. I think they roll away with this one. But now we get on to the National City Malacar South Bay game of the week. 5-3 Southwest SD at 5-2 Chula Vista. I said it before, the autumn wind is a raider. However, I think it's got to be the Spartans in this one. I think that what they've been able to do on the offensive side of the ball with Isaac Baca, he's been great, but we have not talked enough about junior Elijah Gillespie, 638 yards and 11 touchdowns this season. I mean, he's been an incredible wide receiver. I can't say it enough. What he's able to do, especially because Baca is a very good quarterback, he's a game changer for the Spartans. And every time they go against these South Bay teams, they are the favorites. Now, we kind of had this one lined up as the potential Metro Pacific League, like the winner of this was going to win it. But Southwest dropping one to Mar Vista kind of throws a wrench in the mix. Now Chula comes in with, there's kind of blood in the water. Instead of like, oh, we could beat them and, maybe they lose one and we win one. Now Chula can almost certainly clinch it if they get this win.
It's funny you said
it's a huge game.
It's funny you were talking about Baca because you know how we go around, we do all the previews, and that necessarily doesn't mean we're going to be in that region for the games, because I'm in the north on Friday nights, and I just happened to cover the Spartans for their preview, and Coach Bannister was telling me, he's like, yeah, this young man Baca's about that life. And I was like, okay, and I'm watching him sling it, routes on air, and I'm like, okay, he can spin it a little bit, he can spin it. But to see that the Spartans off of 824th Avenue are now 5-2, they're having a special season, and I know they're on a mission after losing. I think who knocked them out last year, Chase? I think it was Coronado on the island.
Yeah,
I think last year. So the Spartans want to get back to the playoffs and do some things. And yeah, the Southwest losing last week loses some of its gusto or its flair. But I mean, Southwest, the Raiders are going to go in there ready to rock and roll. But this is the last game, I believe, for Chula Vista at home on the grass field, because Chula's field is going to be redone, and they're probably not going to get to play on it in a couple of years. So their field's it's finally getting done. All those schools in the South Bay are still working on getting their fields done. But I believe Chula Vista is next to get their field done. So I believe this is the last game for the Spartans to play on their field at 824th Avenue at the crib on grass. And so they're gonna be play out of their brains, because this is the last game. Those kids that are sophomores and juniors are not going to get to play on that field anymore. And the seniors, this is it for them.
Yeah.
Last grass game, and then that's it. And they're riding off into the sunset. So I think Chula Vista will come out the box and they'll be ready to rock and roll. Coach Bannister will have them fired up. Coach Bannister will have them ready to rock and roll. And I think the Spartans get that one. Not saying that just because I'm alum, but I'm just saying it's the last grass field. And that has a lot of meaning. Chula Vista that school's been there since the dinosaurs. I know, because I'm one of them. So I think Chula gets Southwest. No disrespect to Southwest, to the Raiders, but I'm just saying I think Chula gets that one last home game for them on the grass on 824th Avenue.
And then now we get to the Saturday night special, our last one of the season, which will be 4-3 St. Augustine at 8-0 Lincoln. I'm so happy that we get a look into the future of St. Augustine and that these kids get to be put on live television. There's so many good young players on this team.
They just still got all those sophomores, right? They still got all those sophomores.
Man, they got sophomores and they got freshmen now with Flores and Flave. I mean, no one's catching Lincoln this year. I'm sorry. At least until the playoffs.
Do you think Lincoln was better last year or this year?
That's a good question, because I'm looking at it, and I thought that defense last year was one of the best defenses
with Josiah Cox and all those cats
I've ever seen. I really say that. But man, this defense this year is giving them a run for the money, because this defense, I mean, it doesn't matter what good team comes up against them. San Diego team, dogs. Southern section team, you can be on an island out in the Pacific. They are beating you up.
Yeah, Lincoln's got dogs.
I mean,
they got dogs.
I don't know if St. Augustine can hang with them. I would love to see what St. Augustine can do and where they can put themselves as, okay, we're going against this great team. Who are we? How great are we even at this stage? I want to see that from Saints. But, man, Lincoln is just – and now they get a chance. Lincoln is all about proving themselves. And they don't have to, but they continue to do so. Now they get the chance on live television to do it again. Man, they're gonna be out there ready to ball.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with Lincoln is I think Lincoln, like you said, they don't care who's out in front of them. They just go out there and they just ball out. They just go ball out. It doesn't matter if you're a school in Dago, if you're a school from Hawaii, if you're a school from up to 5 in LA, St. John Bosco, or whoever the case may be. Coach Dade and Coach Carter, they line up, and whoever's put in front of them, they go out there and they just ball out on both sides of the ball. That's what I was saying, is last year's squad better than this year's squad? Because I haven't got to see Lincoln play in person this year. So I mean, last year we had Rod on the game and against Mater Dei and whatnot, but I haven't seen them in person. Last year, I was like, man, this team is really, really good. That's why I was asking if you could tell me if this team was better than last year's squad.
I think I would still take last year's squad
Just because of Rod, or just as a whole?
It's, I don't want to lean to them because they won a state title. It's like if we're doing a comparison, but I think having Roderick Robinson on offense was just something different.
Yeah.
Especially with Chatham being a great quarterback as it is, the great outside weapons they had on that team, and then you had Roderick Robinson. I think that's the superior in this.
And I agree with you. Our silver pigskin winner. And the thing is, I mean, to think that this young man was right here last year, and now he's getting PT on the #1 team in the land in the Georgia Bulldogs. I mean, it doesn't fathom. When you and I were sitting here on Saturdays and watching games, and we're like, wow, Rod's getting burned right now. We were watching him in high school do his thing. But it's what I'm saying is Lincoln just kind of reloads. I mean, they seem, they're so good on both sides of the ball. Coach Gladnick is going to try to scheme up against them and whatnot. And like you said, they got a bunch of freshmen and sophomores that are getting a lot of PT. But when Coach Gladnick left Torrey Pines to go to St. Augustine, Coach Gladnick knew what time it was. He knows that, like, in a couple of years, we're going to be about that life. Yeah. Like, they're going to, Coach Gladnick, he's going to bring these kids in, and they're already, like, we're going to be good. Yeah. They're good now. So it's good. But I'm saying, like, in 3 or 4 years.
It's great they get that shine, too.
Yeah,
they
that's
get
what I'm saying.
Chance to show who they are.
Yeah, and they got, I can't even imagine, like, in 3 or 4 years, like, he's got his fingerprint when he's really entrenched in being there, because this is only his second year there, right? Can you, in a couple of years, dude, they're going to be just, them and Lincoln are going to be just filthy. And the usual suspects as well, but I mean, they're just,
I agree.
They're good, dude. They're good. they're good.
Well, week 9 is going to be a great one, but that'll do it for us. Tune in tomorrow for PPR podcast number 129, where the Moshi Pit will be on the podcast. Granite Hills Moshi Tilea will sit down and Paul and Bert. But for me and Nick, we'll see you guys on the PPR.